Three. Hello, Christine.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Good. I have the pleasure of speaking today with Christine Kempf of Mrs. Greenways in Dundas and Grimsby, and I think Alora as well.
And Alora, yeah.
When did you open that shop?
Alora opened, it was impeccable timing. It was March of 2020, 5 days before everything. I think it was March 13th we opened, and March 18th we had to close everything down.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy, hey? And you're still there.
Yep, we are. Do you know what? When we closed the doors, I mean, I was nervous for all three of the stores, don't get me wrong, but Alora, we had no basis there, right? Nobody even knew we were there. So we closed the doors to all three of them, and I thought, oh, we're not going to have an order for Alora. It is what it is. But actually, surprisingly, it was not as busy as Grimsby and Dundas, but it held its own, which was a good thing, I guess. We didn't expect that. That was nice.
Very pleasant surprise, I guess, eh?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, good for you. So you've got the 3 locations. How long have you been in Dundas?
Dundas, we're coming up on 7. It'll be 7 years in November.
Yeah, you used to be on, is it Foundry? That little tiny shop. Yeah, when you first started that. I remember that when you first were there. You had a little sign on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Sorry?
We had just a tiny little store.
Yeah, and a sign from King Street pointing into the direction of your shop. Yeah, well, look at you now. You got a fantastic location right next to Mickey McGuire's and the police station in Grafton Square.
Yeah.
Right. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So how did it come to be, Mrs. Greenway? Tell us your story, if you would, please.
So how did it come to be? So there's also my mom, who is Mary Lou. So she's actually in Dundas. I'm in Grimsby. So she kind of oversees the Dundas store in terms of like being there every day a bit more than I do. But how it kind of came to be was I was a nature-loving hippie for quite some time. I lived in the Northwest Territories for quite some time, so it's very vast, and there's a lot of nature, and you submerge yourself. We came back down to Ontario, and I ran out of time. When we lived up north, I made a lot of my own products. When we came back down here with 2 kids and the hustle bustle of Ontario, I no longer had time to make my own. So then I was starting to try and source companies that were making, natural products. And what was going on was I was like ordering this online, and I was driving to Oakville to get this, and, driving to Hamilton. I was all over the place. And I said to my mom off the cusp one day, it'd be so awesome to have a store where everything was in one spot, and you could walk in and you could get everything that you needed. And I always had this vision of being able to bring my own container in and refill it. Yeah. And I was like, it'd be so cool if we, you could go somewhere and you could refill your container. So, but at the time, my girls were still really little, like kindergarten and daycare. And I had a full-time job with the federal government with a very comfortable pension and a lot of family benefits. And I didn't have the guts to leave it. And so my mom had another business at the time and had a little bit of capital to kind of put into something. And she said, I'll start it. I'm like, are you seriously? And she's like, yeah, we'll start it. We'll just start it and we'll see how it does. So we started Dundas on that tiny little side street. Always with a vision to build it into something bigger. And that's kind of what brought us here. So that's kind of how it started. It was just a little thought. There was nothing at the time, 7 years ago, there was no other store like it. There was no, there may have been in Toronto or something, but nothing kind of in this area. And if you can't go to pretty much any community now where you don't see some sort of tiny little eco-friendly store. So it's really amazing to see how much growth our industry has seen in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you can go and refill products. I buy things from your shop in Dundas, and I've got the dish detergent and the soaps and different things like that. So yeah, it's awesome.
We started with when we started on Foundry Street, I think we had maybe 6 products you could refill, which had like a tiny little refill station, and it was hard to even source products. We would go to someone and I'd be like, I just want to buy it in like a pail or something. And they'd be like, huh? because it just wasn't. So we found a couple companies willing to do that. And so I think we started with 6. And as things kind of grew and expanded, we now have, at last count, we had 87 products in our refillery, which is pretty awesome to see. That's just a testament to how much consumer demand there is now, because there's just so many other Canadian companies making bulk purchasing a possibility now.
I bought a lovely little outfit there for my nephew in the Yukon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago now, but it was just made in Canada. It was this lovely little suit kind of thing. It was lovely. But your shop's beautiful. I've bought a few things there, and it's got some lovely things. Lots of things for kids, eh?
Yes, lots of things. I mean, that was kind of started or somewhat organically at the time when we started the store. My girls were small. My mom was still a fairly new grandma, and grandmas love to buy their grandkids stuff. So again, it was really hard to source natural kids products. So that's kind of was a fairly big section of our store from the get-go. We figured out really quickly that there's a huge demand for it. That was, up until probably the last 2 years, where the refillery is kind of the mainstay of our store. The kids section was the busiest part of our store. Whether people were looking for well-made clothes, Canadian-made, safe wooden toys, that kind of stuff. That was always kind of the biggest part of our store, because it is still kind of challenging to source that stuff, especially locally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the nice thing with Dundas as well, which is what I try to do with these interviews, is promoting local businesses. And that we don't have a lot of big stores, like chain stores in Dundas. I think it's the same in Grimsby as well, I imagine. So it's nice to support, people like you who just started out, and you're just you and your mom and just doing your thing. So it's fantastic. Well done.
Thank you.
How did you come up with the name?
That's kind of funny. The name came up. My mom's husband at the time, he's since passed away, but we were trying to come up with a name, and his brother one day just off the cuffs said, it's a female run business. You need to have that in your title somehow. Again, female run businesses are exploding now. It's so incredible to see, but even just 7 years ago, it still wasn't as big as it was. So that's where the Mrs. came from. Mm-hmm. And then the Greenway came from, it's a green way of living. So, right. Eco. So most people think that's our last name. Yeah. I feel like probably 80% of people think our last name is Greenway, but it's not at all. But that's kind of where the name came from.
That would be a great coincidence if it was, wouldn't it?
We did have someone shop in the store one day, and their last name was Greenway. And I was like, this is so funny, because everyone assumes it's our last name.
Oh, I've never heard that name for a surname. That's great. So you described some of your products. What else do you have there? I know you've got toys and eating utensils for kids, and
we have
books.
So we have everything from ethically made women and men's clothing, underwear, socks, and that kind of stuff. We carry 2 different vegan leather purse line, Canadian purse lines. We've got a huge baby and kids section. So that includes everything from clothing to toys, games and puzzles, and then all the personal care products you can think of. And then again, personal care products for adults. So, your shampoos and conditioners and oral care. And we have reusable menstrual products for women. And then laundry, cleaning. Laundry and cleaning is probably one of our biggest. Laundry and cleaning, natural laundry and cleaning products. And then within the last few years, we've kind of branched into a few different food products, locally made food products that are in sustainable packaging. So, we've got some teas from Hamilton, and we have some jams from Niagara region, and that kind of stuff is what we kind of have. The premise is that we kind of have a little bit for everybody, and that we've done our research. I don't know, there's a term called greenwashing. Greenwashing means that it tends to happen with the bigger corporations where they trick people into thinking that they're buying something that's natural or they're buying something that's eco-friendly. You can think of it right away. There's a big cleaning company and they use the term Greenworks on their cleaners. Yeah. They're not natural at all. There's nothing. They've taken 1 or 2 bad things out of them, but they still have 45 bad things in them. So it makes it really, really hard for consumers. To figure out whether or not they're doing the right thing. This has taken me years of research to figure out, okay, this ingredient's good and this ingredient's bad. This is good for the environment, this is bad for the, and it changes. Like there's things I did 6 years ago that I thought were good that turns out they weren't really. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do in the store is have a little bit of everything and have customers know that when they walk in, that I've done the research. I've gone through every ingredient with a fine-tooth comb. If it's a product that's made in China, I have gone to that company and asked them for their certifications to show us that they are paying a fair wage, that they are ethically made, that they aren't dumping chemicals into the water system. So all that kind of stuff, just so that when someone walks in our door, they know that, okay, I'm buying this and it is in fact good to use on my child, or it is in fact good for the environment. That's kind of what it is. So we really have like a big selection of just about everything. You
do have a lovely selection. If you want to buy a gift for somebody, you can go into your shop and you'll find something for anybody, for sure. Yeah. There's so much cool stuff in there. There really is. So I was going to ask you what you're most proud of, but I can imagine you tell me, what are you most proud of? I mean, there's a lot to be proud of.
There's a lot that I'm proud of. I did, again, talk about timing. We did build the business up enough that in February of 2020, I walked away from the federal government. Probably the hardest decision I've ever made in my life because I had 14 and a half years of pension in with them. So it was super scary. But I have 2 young girls, and I really want them when they grow up to do whatever it is they want to do. I thought, you know what, I'm doing this job that I don't love. Yes, it is comfortable and it's easy, but my heart was somewhere else. And to premise it, the other thing was I was still doing the stores too. So I was doing a full-time job, doing the stores in the evening and being a mom. Yeah. So that is probably what I'm most proud of, is just taking that jump and taking that leap. And doing something that I'm so passionate about. I really do truly believe in protecting the planet. I think that's, again, coming back to my children, it's driven a lot by my kids because I want them to grow up in a beautiful planet. I want their kids to. I feel that we owe it to future generations to make a difference, to ensure that this is all still here for them. We may not see the really dire effects of climate change, of our landfills overflowing. I don't think, we are, don't get me wrong, we are seeing bits of it now, but we are going to get to a point where it's super, super scary and there's going to be really terrible things happening on our planet. I probably won't see it. You probably won't see it. My girls might not even, but we're going to get there eventually. Yeah. And I want to do the best that I can to try and stop that. And as much as I love providing people the opportunity, whether it's in Dundas or Grimsby or Elora or even our online clientele, the opportunity to come in the store and, make better purchases, I love educating people because knowledge is power. And the more people that walk through the doors of any one of our stores that I can say, hey, did you know that only 11% of what you put in your bin is actually recycled? That's a light bulb moment for a lot of people. And what it does is it makes people stop and think. And maybe they're going to go to the grocery store and maybe they're going to use reusable produce bags, or maybe they're going to repurpose something that they would normally throw in the bin. Tiny, tiny little things just make a huge difference.
Yeah, and everybody
they all add up. They all add up. So you know what? Nobody has to maybe live as hippie, we'll use the term hippie, as I do.
Yeah.
That's taken me years to get there. But I always say to people, even if you're doing one thing, if every single person on this planet did one thing, think of what that would do. It would make such a difference. But yeah, so that's kind of maybe what I'm most proud of, is just, walking away, taking the scary route to something that I love.
Well, and setting an excellent role model for your kids, don't you?
I try.
Like you say, doing what you want to do, and not sort of getting stuck in a job that you don't like just because it pays the bills and it's comfortable, which is easy. Absolutely, it's easy, but good for you.
Yeah.
So what do you think you love most about what you do?
What I love most? I love feeling like I'm making some sort of difference.
Yeah.
You know what, I feel that, in a smaller scale in my home, we do a lot, and I've tried really, really hard. I've worked really, really hard. But now that we have the stores, I feel like my reach is so much bigger. I feel like I can just reach so many more people, and it just is a really great feeling. Like I again, just to be able to say, like, I did the best that I could, and I did the best that I could to help other people make change. It feels good. It does.
Yeah.
It does. It feels good. Sometimes, I mean, I'm human. There's lots of times that I even think I'm not doing enough, or I look around me. This time of year is a perfect example. We don't drive anywhere after the snow's melted that we don't see garbage literally littered everywhere. It's defeating. But I also just had someone today message me on our Instagram account that's in Grimsby here, and I just met him through the store, and he said, "Hey, my girlfriend and I just went out and cleaned up some garbage today, and I just wanted to let you know." So it's such a little thing, but it feels really great sometimes, because you know what, had I not met him, had we not talked about all the garbage in Grimsby, he probably wouldn't have gone out and done that little cleanup.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's left to people like him to do that, isn't it? Otherwise, it just doesn't get picked up. So, like you say, everybody does something, and it just helps the world out immensely.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's probably it sounds like your kids who sort of motivate you. I mean, them in the background doing the best for them in terms of the environment, plus you personally doing what you want to do. I imagine they're big motivators, hey?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone that's a parent probably understands that, like, probably 98% of what you do on a daily basis is somehow circled around your kids in some way or another. I was always kind of eco-conscious, but I had my girls, and what really started me down this path hardcore was a simple article when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was researching baby products to use on her, and I came across an article about Johnson & Johnson, and it was something in the States, and they had formaldehyde. They've been using formaldehyde in their baby products for 45 years. And that is really, I laugh now, like that is really where it all started for me, because I went into a complete panic, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I did some research, and I had my baby, and I brought the products to the hospital with me because I knew they used Johnson & Johnson. And that was where it started. And from there, it like kind of went into, eating organic food and trying to grow our own food and doing that kind of stuff. And then probably 6 or 7 years ago, I was like, we're doing all this stuff, but the one thing I'm not totally focusing on yet is the waste that we're generating. We're just still generating quite a bit of waste. So I started to kind of research ways that I could help reduce the waste in our household. And again, that's become quite the buzz, which is great. Social media has really driven that. I've seen quite the growth in people that want to, reduce their waste in the last few years. So now it's not, I don't want to say it's easy, because that for a lot of people it's not, especially if you're starting out. Yeah. But it has become maybe a bit simpler, because there's just so many more options now. Like you can go to Bulk Barn and you can bring your own containers and fill them. Right. Yeah. So they're or you can use a refillery, whether it's in our store or another store. There's lots of spots where you can bring your own containers, and a lot of companies are starting to focus more on sustainable packaging. So, you know, we're using stuff instead of plastic, cardboard instead of plastic, and that kind of thing. So we're getting there. We're definitely making strides in this. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you're making a difference. So when you opened your store on Foundry, you could not have really known what was going to happen. You just thought, well, let's just see. Well, you said yourself, let's see how it goes and hope for the best. So what do you think is the key to your success? Do you think it's just the Dundas and Grimsby and Elora are ready for such a store? Like, where do your clients come from, your customers?
So Dundas has been, I mean, they're our first store. So you know what they do have that little spot near and dear to our heart. When we opened that store on Foundry, I remember the first day we opened and we had cookies and all that stuff. And like, honestly, we probably had like 5 people in the store. I was like, what have we done? Like, oh my God, you know, it took a long time and we didn't have any experience in retail either. I should premise that. Like, my mom owned a trucking company. I worked for the federal government. We had no retail experience at all. What helped build it? Social media is a huge part of it, because as social media grew, the message of protecting our planet just like moved so quickly. All of a sudden people would be on Facebook or Instagram, or I mean TikTok now. I'm by no means a social media guru, but you know, they were seeing videos of like these hundreds of tons of plastic floating in the ocean, or these landfills, or dirty drinking water, or companies pumping stuff in, and all of a sudden it couldn't be hidden anymore. Right? It's one thing to hear like, oh, we've got a lot of plastic in our waterways. It's another thing to see, you know, a video of what should be some beautiful, pristine beach down in the Caribbean or South America or something like that, that's littered with plastic that has literally come hundreds of thousands of miles. So I think that's really what pushed the movement full steam ahead. We were in it, obviously, like I said, we had 5 people through the door the first day. We were in it ahead. We happened to be ahead of it. The first few years were by no means like, oh, this is great. It was probably about 1.5 years to 2 years before COVID hit, where we were like, okay, we're seeing some growth. We have, like, besides my mom and I, we have some really incredible staff. We are so insanely blessed with, I say girls, because we only have girls working for us right now, the girls that are working for us. So I do pride myself on the fact that when customers come through our store, they feel welcomed. And we've got a knowledgeable staff and people that want to help. So those girls are absolutely a huge part of our success. Yeah, without a doubt. We also have a huge passion for it. I don't know, like, I like to think if someone comes through the store, my passion in this shines through. And so maybe that, I think our success is just, it's a whole bunch of different things. Yeah. I don't know if I could peg it to one. And as crazy as this sounds, COVID was, in a way, a big part of our success too, because it actually, in that first closure, when we closed in March of 2020, and no one was going anywhere, we did basically an online delivery type model. And in the communities we were in, people caught wind that they could order stuff and have it dropped on their porch. So there was a ton of people that didn't know we existed, that all of a sudden were ordering from us. And so it really got our name out there. So as much as COVID had, there's so much of it I'd like to forget. It did, in ways, really grow our business for us. Which is ironic, really ironic to think, because on March 17th, when we closed those doors, knowing we couldn't open the next day, I panicked. I thought we were done.
Of course, wouldn't you? You just never know what's going to come up, though, do you? You just, that door's closed and see what else happens. So that's fantastic. That's awesome, Christine. That's a great story.
Thank you. So
I certainly encourage people to visit Mrs. Greenway in Dundas and Grimsby and Elora. And I certainly thank you for your time, Christine. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Judy Chapala with Revalio Brokerage. But I really appreciate your time, Christine, and wish you all the best. And hopefully I'll see you again. I know you came to our Rotary group, which was fantastic. That was excellent. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Judy.
And all the best going forward.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.